You woke up on your birthday and felt nothing, not sadness, not joy, not even the mild disappointment of getting older, just nothing. You went through the motions, responded to the messages, smiled at the cake, thanked people for remembering, but inside, there was this strange flatness, this absence. And the worst part, you didn't even care that you didn't care. Your birthday, the day that used to mean something, had become just another rotation of the planet. Just another 24 hours to get through. And somewhere in that numbness, a question formed. When did I become this person? When did the day that was supposed to celebrate my existence become evidence of how little my existence seems to matter to me? Maybe you told yourself it's just maturity, that caring about birthdays is childish, and you've simply outgrown the need for external validation and celebration. Maybe you convinced yourself that this flatness is wisdom, that you've transcended the shallow need for parties and attention and cake. Or maybe, in your darker moments, you wondered if something is fundamentally broken inside you. If this numbness is depression, if you're losing your capacity to feel joy altogether, if you're becoming one of those people who just exists, hollow, going through life's rituals without ever really being present for them. But what if I told you that your birthday becoming just another day isn't a symptom of depression or emotional death, but the first tremor of an existential earthquake? What if this numbness isn't the end of feeling, but the beginning of seeing? What if your indifference to your own birthday is actually your psyche's way of rejecting one of the most profound lies you've ever been told about what it means to exist? Because here's what nobody tells you about birthdays. They're not celebrations of your life. They're annual performances of a fiction, a social ritual designed to convince you that your existence has narrative coherence, progressive meaning, cumulative value, that you are becoming something, that each year adds weight and significance to who you are. Birthdays are the culture's way of imposing a false teleology onto the fundamentally groundless fact of your being. They're markers on a map that doesn't actually exist, signposts on a journey that isn't going anywhere, celebrations of progress in a game with no winning condition, and you, without realizing it, have stopped believing in the map. Let me give you the philosophical foundation for what's happening to you. Martin Heidegger, the German existential philosopher, distinguished between two modes of existence, the they-self and authentic being. The they-self is how most people live absorbed in social roles. Definitions, narratives, and meanings provided by Das Man, the anonymous they of social convention. The they-self celebrates birthdays because that's what one does. It marks time because that's how one measures a life. It performs happiness because that's what one is supposed to feel when one has survived another year. But authentic being, what Heidegger called Dasein in its genuine mode, recognizes something the they-self cannot bear to see, that you are thrown into existence without reason, without purpose, without inherent meaning. You didn't choose to be born, you don't know why you exist, and no accumulation of years will ever answer that fundamental groundlessness. Birthdays, from this perspective, aren't celebrations, they're lies. Annual attempts to paper over the abyss of your unjustified existence with cake and candles and the pretense that this year, this rotation around the sun, means something. When your birthday becomes just another day, you're not losing something, you're seeing through something. The ritual that once worked, that once successfully convinced you that your existence has the kind of meaning birthdays imply, has stopped working. The spell is broken, and your numbness, that's not depression. That's the feeling of living without the comfortable fiction. That's what it feels like when the they-self's narratives stop functioning and you're left face to face with what Heidegger called thrownness, the brute, unexplained fact of your being here. And if this is hitting different for you, consider staying. We explore these existential depths every single week. You know where the button is. This is what happened to you. At some point, maybe gradually, maybe suddenly you stopped being able to pretend that birthdays consecrate your existence. You stopped being able to participate in the collective delusion that counting years gives them meaning. You looked at the number 35, 40, 28, whatever, and instead of seeing progress or regression, accomplishment or failure, you saw a number. Arbitrary, meaningless, a measurement of rotations that has nothing to do with who you are or why you're here or what any of this is for. And the culture, predictably, has no category for this realization except pathology. If you don't care about your birthday, something must be wrong with you. You must be depressed. You must be lonely. You must need therapy or medication or a better social circle. What the culture cannot admit is that you might be right. That birthdays might actually be elaborate mechanisms of existential avoidance. That your numbness might be clarity. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you're an actor in a play. For years, you've performed your role with genuine conviction. You've memorized your lines, hit your marks, embodied your character. You've cried real tears during the sad scenes and laughed genuine laughs during the happy ones. The play feels real to you. It is real to you. And every time your character's birthday arrives in the script, you celebrate with authentic feeling because in that moment, you are your character, and your character's birthday matters. But then, something shifts. Maybe you catch a glimpse of the audience watching. Maybe you see the edge of the stage. Maybe you notice the other actors breaking character for just a fraction of a second, and suddenly, you can't unsee it. You're still performing your lines, still hitting your marks, still going through the motions, but now you know it's a play. You know the birthday your character celebrates is scripted. You know the meaning your character finds in aging another year is written by someone else, for purposes that have nothing to do with you. At first, this knowing is disorienting. You keep trying to fall back into character, to re-immerse yourself in the fiction, to feel what your character is supposed to feel. But you can't, the illusion is broken. And the worst part is that everyone around you is still deeply immersed in their roles. They're celebrating their birthdays with genuine feeling. They're measuring their lives by these annual markers with authentic conviction. And you're standing there, speaking your lines, wearing your costume, but utterly unable to forget that it's all just a play. This is what's happening when your birthday becomes just another day. The script called for you to feel something: joy, nostalgia, gratitude, even anxiety about aging, but you can no longer produce those scripted emotions on demand. You've seen the edge of the stage. You've recognized that birthdays are social constructions, narrative devices, meaning-making rituals that don't actually make meaning, they just perform meaning for an audience of selves, desperate to believe that existence has the kind of coherence and significance that birthdays imply. And once you've seen this, you can't unsee it. The play continues. The other actors keep delivering their lines with conviction. But you're awake in the middle of the performance, and there's no going back to sleep. Now, here's what most people do when they reach this point. They try to make their birthday meaningful again through intensity. They plan bigger parties, more elaborate celebrations, more expensive gifts. They post more on social media, seeking validation in likes and comments. They manufacture significance through scale, hoping that if they can just make the celebration big enough, loud enough, special enough, they'll feel something again. They'll reconnect with the meaning birthdays used to have, but it doesn't work. It can't work. Because the problem isn't that your birthdays aren't special. Enough it's that you've seen through the entire mechanism that makes birthdays feel special in the first place. You've recognized that the meaning isn't in the day itself, but in your willingness to participate in a collective fiction. And you can't force yourself back into that fiction through amplification. You can't celebrate your way back into believing. It's like trying to make yourself believe in Santa Claus by decorating more elaborately for Christmas. The decorations don't restore belief, they just highlight its absence. This is the trap. The culture tells you that if birthdays feel empty, you need better birthdays, more connection, more recognition, more celebration. But every attempt to fill the emptiness with more ritual just reinforces your awareness that the ritual itself is hollow. You're feeding a hunger that grows larger with every meal. You're trying to solve a philosophical crisis with a social solution. And with each failed attempt, the numbness deepens not because you're incapable of feeling, but because you keep trying to feel something the culture insists you should feel while ignoring what you're actually experiencing, the groundlessness of existence itself. And if you're still here, you already know this isn't surface-level content. Subscribe if you want to keep going deeper. What's needed isn't more celebration. What's needed is a complete inversion of how you understand what birthdays revealed and what their meaninglessness is pointing you toward. Because when your birthday becomes just another day, you're not losing a source of meaning. You're being confronted with the question of whether your existence ever needed the kind of meaning birthdays pretend to provide. Heidegger called this confrontation angst. Not anxiety in the clinical sense, but existential anxiety. The feeling that arises when all your familiar meanings, roles, and narratives suddenly seem arbitrary and groundless. Angst isn't a mood you're in, it's the feeling of reality itself showing up without its usual disguises. And birthdays losing their meaning is one of the most common triggers of angst. Because birthdays are such a fundamental narrative device in how the day self-structures time and identity. But here's the extraordinary thing Heidegger understood. Angst isn't the problem. It's the portal. When everything feels meaningless, when your birthday is just another day, and your age is just a number, and your life feels like an accumulation of years without adding up to anything that's not existential failure, that's existential opportunity. Because in that space where the old meanings have collapsed and the new meanings haven't yet formed, you encounter something the day self spends its entire existence avoiding: your own being, stripped of social roles, narratives, and assigned meanings. This state has a name: authentic thrownness. It's the experience of recognizing that you exist, you are here, now, alive, without knowing why, without it meaning anything beyond itself, without it being part of any larger story. And while this realization can feel like nihilistic despair, it's actually the foundation of what Heidegger considered genuine freedom. The freedom to exist without needing existence to be justified, celebrated, or narratively coherent. Your birthday becoming just another day doesn't mean you've lost the capacity to find your life meaningful. It means you've lost the capacity to accept the specific kind of meaning. The culture insists you should find the meaning of progress, of becoming progress, of annual milestones that mark your journey toward ... What? Exactly. The culture never completes that sentence: toward success, wisdom, death. The destination remains conveniently vague, allowing birthdays to gesture toward significance without ever having to deliver actual meaning. But authentic being doesn't operate through narrative progression. It doesn't need markers and milestones. It exists in what Heidegger called the moment of vision, the experience of being fully present to your existence as it is, without needing it to be part of a story. This doesn't mean your life has no shape or significance. It means its significance comes from how you exist moment to moment, not from how many moments you've accumulated or what those moments supposedly add up to. Now, I must warn you about something. When I say that authentic being doesn't need birthdays to matter, you might think this sounds like a prescription for a life without celebration, joy, or marking special occasions. You might worry that I'm suggesting you should never enjoy your birthday again, never feel moved by the passage of time, never find meaning in how you've changed and grown. But that's not what's being described here. The distinction isn't between caring about birthdays and not caring about birthdays. It's between deriving your sense of existential significance from birthdays versus celebrating them without needing them to justify your existence. It's the difference between my birthday matters because it proves my life has meaning and my birthday is just a day, and I can enjoy it precisely because I don't need it to carry existential weight. The first relationship is parasitic. Your sense of existing meaningfully depends on the birthday ritual successfully generating feelings of significance. When it fails, as it inevitably does, once you've seen through the mechanism, you experience the numbness you're feeling now. The second relationship is free. You can take or leave birthday celebrations based on whether you actually enjoy them, not based on whether they successfully convince you that your existence has narrative coherence. And maybe it's time to join the space where we go deeper every week. You know where the button is? Let me tell you about a woman I knew who experienced exactly what you're experiencing now. She turned 39, and her birthday felt like a bureaucratic formality. She went through the dinner, the cake, the requisite "I can't believe I'm almost 40" jokes, but inside, there was nothing. No crisis about aging, no joy about being alive, just ... administrative recognition that another year had passed. And this disturbed her deeply, because she had always been someone who loved birthdays, who made elaborate plans, who posted lengthy, reflective Facebook essays, who saw her birthday as an annual opportunity to take stock and celebrate the journey. She tried everything to resurrect the feeling. The next year, she planned an elaborate 40th birthday party. She invited everyone she knew. She created a whole experience, complete with a meaningful slideshow of her life and heartfelt speeches from friends. And it was lovely. People said beautiful things. She smiled and thanked them. But underneath, She felt like she was watching someone else's birthday party. Like she was attending a celebration for a character named her, but she herself wasn't actually there. The following year, she tried the opposite approach. She told no one it was her birthday. She spent the day alone, hiking. She thought maybe the problem was the performative aspect, the social pressure. Maybe if she could just be alone with herself on her birthday, she'd reconnect with its significance. But, alone on the trail, she just felt alone. The day didn't feel sacred or special. It felt like hiking on any other day, which was fine, pleasant even. But it wasn't meaningful in the way birthdays were supposed to be meaningful. And then something shifted. She was 42, and her birthday came around again. She woke up, recognized it was her birthday, and realized she didn't need to do anything about that fact. She didn't need to make it special or ignore it as a statement. She didn't need it to feel meaningful or prove that meaninglessness was okay. She could just exist on her birthday the same way she existed on any other day. And in that moment of not needing her birthday to be anything in particular, something unexpected happened. She felt more present to her actual life than she had in years. She ended up spending the day doing ordinary things: coffee, errands, a long phone call with a friend who didn't know it was her birthday, cooking dinner, nothing special, nothing ceremonial. But she was actually there for it in a way she hadn't been when she was trying so hard to make her birthday matter. She was present to the coffee, to the conversation, to the act of chopping vegetables. Not because these things were birthday activities and therefore special, but because she was just there, existing, without needing that existence to add up to anything beyond itself. This is what I'm pointing toward. This woman didn't solve the problem of birthdays becoming meaningless. She stopped treating it as a problem. She recognized that the meaning she thought birthdays had was always something she was performing, not something inherent in the day itself. And once she stopped performing that meaning, stopped trying to resurrect it or prove she didn't need it, she discovered something underneath, the simple fact of her ongoing existence, which neither gains nor loses significance based on annual markers. Your birthday becoming just another day is like a snake shedding its skin. While it's happening, it looks like deterioration. The old skin cracks and peels. The snake seems vulnerable, exposed, wrong. But this isn't the snake dying. This is how the snake grows. The old skin can't expand anymore. It served its purpose, protected the smaller snake, allowed it to move through its environment safely. But now that skin is too small, it's constricting rather than protecting. And the snake must shed it, not because something is wrong, but because something is right. Because the living organism underneath has outgrown the shell. You are in the middle of this process now. The narrative skin you've worn your whole life, the story that says birthdays mark progress, that age confers meaning, that your existence becomes more significant the longer it continues, that skin is cracking, peeling away. And yes, it feels like dying because something is dying. The version of you that needed birthdays to matter in order to feel like your existence matters is dying. And that version was a you that you loved, that you knew how to be, that felt safe and coherent. But underneath that dying self is another self, one that doesn't need annual affirmation to know it exists, one that doesn't require narrative structure to have presence, one that can encounter the fundamental groundlessness of being here without collapsing into despair or grasping for false meanings. This self doesn't celebrate birthdays the way the old self did, desperately, as proof of significance. This self might celebrate birthdays or might not, but either way, it doesn't need them to verify that existence is worth existing. The void you're feeling isn't absence, it's space. Space where the old meanings used to be so densely packed that you couldn't see around them, couldn't see past them, couldn't see that they were just meanings you were carrying, not truth about what existence requires. And now that those meanings are thinning out, dissolving, you're encountering what was always there underneath, being itself, naked and unjustified and sufficient. This is terrifying because the they self cannot conceive of an existence that doesn't justify itself through progress, achievement, narrative, meaning. The they self thinks that if your birthday doesn't matter, then nothing matters, and if nothing matters, you should be despairing. But authentic being understands something the they self can never grasp, that mattering isn't what existence does. Mattering is a value judgment imposed on existence by selves desperate to justify themselves. Existence itself just exists. It doesn't matter or not matter, it simply is. And this brings us to what you need to do now, which is paradoxically to start trying to make your birthday meaningful. Stop trying to not care as a form of rebellion. Stop diagnosing your numbness as depression. Stop comparing your current birthdays to your past birthdays. Stop expecting to feel something specific when the day arrives. These are all attempts to manage the anxiety of thrownness, to paper over the groundlessness with new meanings or new strategies or new narratives about what your relationship to birthdays should be. Instead, practice this on your next birthday. Notice when the thought arises that you should be feeling something. Notice the cultural script running in the background, telling you what this day means and how you should respond. Notice the urge to either comply with that script or rebel against it, and just ... Notice, don't comply, don't rebel. Don't try to feel what you think you should feel. Don't try to not feel it. Just exist on that day, the same way you exist on other days, with whatever feelings, thoughts, and sensations actually arise, rather than the ones you think should arise. This isn't a technique to make birthdays meaningful again. It's a practice of existing without needing days to be meaningful in prescribed ways. It's the practice of authentic being meeting what is, rather than trying to make what is conform to what the they self insists should be. Notice what you reach for when the numbness arrives. Do you reach for explanation? For diagnosis? For social validation? For intensified celebration? For philosophical justification of why you don't need birthdays? These are all avoidances, different strategies to not feel the actual feeling of existence without narrative support. The practice is to not reach for anything, to sit in the space where birthdays used to mean something and now don't, without trying to fill that space or make it go away. Stop comparing. Stop looking at other people's birthday celebrations and wondering why you can't feel that way anymore. Stop looking at your own past birthdays and trying to recapture what you felt then. The meaning birthdays had for you before was real for you then. It served you then. But you are not the same self you were then. And trying to resurrect old meanings is like trying to put the shed snakeskin back on. It won't fit. It will only constrict. Stop explaining yourself to others. When people ask about your birthday plans and you say nothing special and they look concerned, you don't owe them a philosophical treatise on thrownness and the collapse of narrative meaning. You don't owe them reassurance that you're okay. You don't owe them participation in the collective fiction that birthdays matter in the way the culture insists they matter. A simple, "I'm keeping it low-key this year," is enough. The culture's discomfort with your indifference is the culture's problem, not yours. And here's the paradox. By not trying to make your birthday meaningful, by not trying to feel what you think you should feel, by simply existing on that day without existential performance, you might discover a kind of meaning that birthdays in their cultural form can never provide. Not the meaning of progress or accumulated years or narrative coherence, but the meaning of presence itself. The strange, unjustifiable, sufficient fact that you are here now existing, without needing that existence to be part of any story at all. If this is hitting you in a way other content doesn't, maybe it's time to go deeper. Every week, we do this. Subscribe if you're ready. So let's return to where we started and see it with new eyes. You woke up on your birthday and felt nothing. You thought this was a problem, evidence of depression, emotional death, existential failure. But now you can recognize it for what it actually is. The first tremor of authentic being breaking through the crust of social performance. Your numbness wasn't absence of feeling. It was the feeling of all those false meanings falling away, leaving you face to face with something that they self spends a lifetime avoiding. Your own groundless, unjustified, narrative-free existence. And yes, this feels like nothing at first. Because nothing is what it is when you remove all the meanings you've been taught to project onto it. But that nothing isn't empty, it's not void. It's the space in which actual existence happens, existence that doesn't need to mean anything beyond itself in order to be sufficient. Your birthday becoming just another day isn't the death of meaning. It's the death of the need for existence to justify itself through culturally prescribed meanings. This is what Heidegger meant when he wrote about being toward death, not a morbid obsession with mortality, but the recognition that existence is finite, groundless, and without inherent teleology. Birthdays are the culture's attempt to deny this truth, to impose false teleology through annual markers that pretend your existence is going somewhere, accumulating something, becoming something. But you've seen through it. You've recognized that there is nowhere to go, nothing to accumulate, no one to become. There is only existing, moment by moment, without justification. And, strangely paradoxically, this is where freedom actually lives. Not in making your birthday meaningful again, not in finding better ways to celebrate or better reasons not to celebrate, but in recognizing that you are free to celebrate or not celebrate, to care or not care, without your existence hanging in the balance. Your life doesn't need birthdays to consecrate it. It never did. The consecration was always just a performance, a ritual to ease the anxiety of being thrown into existence without permission or purpose. When your birthday becomes just another day, you're not becoming numb to joy. You're becoming immune to false meanings. You're shedding the narrative skin that insisted your existence needs to be justified, celebrated, and marked with annual rituals. And underneath that skin is something stranger and more real. The pure fact of your being here, which requires nothing beyond itself. You're already there, you just haven't noticed. The numbness you've been fearing isn't the end of feeling, it's the space before a different kind of feeling becomes possible. The kind that doesn't depend on birthdays meaning anything. The kind that arises from existence itself, unmediated by cultural narratives about what days should mean and what feelings should arise. Your birthday became just another day because it was always just another day. The significance was something you carried, not something the day possessed. And now that you've stopped carrying it, you're free to encounter what's actually here. Not a meaningful birthday or a meaningless birthday, but simply a day in which you exist. Which is all any day ever was. Which is all any day needs to be. The void was never empty. You were just looking away.